So I want to thank you all for joining us today. This is our fifth SDP Q&A. This topic, today's session, is covering the financial management service, the only required regional center POS service in order to access the self-determination program. And we have joining us Vicki Perez and Teracel Jones from two of our vendored FMS agencies to speak with us about the three different models available. We'll have Vicki go over the bill payer model, and Teracel will speak to us about the co-employer and sole employer models. We also have representatives of the regional center here, Michelle Johnson and Jennifer Bloom, two of our three associate directors, Jessica Markov and Jaspreet Mann, two of our client service managers. So everyone else among us is a interested party. We also have Sonia Bingaman with State Council of Developmental Disabilities, who's helping us record today's session so that anyone who misses the topic can review and gather the information subsequently. Given the small group that we have and the intent being give and take, question and answer, I'll ask the folks who are here to learn more about the FMS, if they'd be willing to unmute, introduce themselves, and share what information they're looking to gather today. And I see Tracy Brown has joined us as well, our third of three associate directors. So Stephanie, are you able to unmute? I know you said you didn't want to turn your video camera on.
Yes, I'm here.
Great, thank you. And you did self-disclose that you did not have the time to complete the orientation, which hopefully, correct. And there will be some good information about FMSs pre-recorded in that. But feel free to ask questions if you have. Kadada, are you able to unmute?
Hi, Herman. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Kadada. I am the parent of a 4-year-old on the autism spectrum. And I'm just here to gain more information and knowledge. One question I do have, sorry. One question that I do have for the FMS companies would be, what information do you expect either a self-advocate or a parent to come in with? Like, how can we be prepared, other than knowing what type of FMS we would like to contract with? What information should we have? Should we already have a list of vendors, or not vendors? Well, they're vendors, but I don't know. What information do you want us to have? That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thanks, Kadada. Irene, are you able to unmute? And that's okay if you're not. People are certainly welcome to just listen and gather information. Judy Yee. Are you able to introduce yourself and share what information you're looking to gain today?
Just the general information. And I missed half of the last, I guess, 2 weeks ago, the FMS information. So hopefully either more information, what I missed, or new information.
Okay. All right.
And I have a daughter who's 21, and just to get some information. She's not in a she's still in a transition program through a school district, and she has one more year next year. So I'm just looking the options before the put her into the, I guess, the adult day program. And I think the information I'm getting from per case worker is not too specific enough. So, but I found this your workshop. So it's been very helpful attending every 2 weeks. So it's been and very informational. So
Thank you. Glad to hear and welcome back. Margot De Leon.
Hi. Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay.
Welcome.
Hi again. So just like the other two parents, I'm a parent of an 8-year-old and just getting more education for myself with regards to self-determination. I'm hoping to go ahead and learn more and maybe disseminate that information to the other parents who aren't able to attend and learn for themselves. And I believe the topics covered today may have also been covered last week if it's pretty much the same. So I was at that meeting, so I may just listen and observe if
Perfect.
it's
Very
covering the
good.
same topics.
All right. And Jessica Mercado.
Hello, good afternoon, good evening. I am Jessica Mercado. I am the field service rep and I work for GT. I am assigned to the Alta Regional Center. So it's just good to be here to see the questions that families might have and better ways to serve them with that information.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So with that, we'll jump in to a introduction to the bill payer model that Vicky's going to share with us. And please feel free to use the chat feature. Use the raise hand if you don't want to unmute and interrupt the flow of discussion. But also, as small a group as this is, if you're so inclined and feel comfortable, go ahead and unmute your mic and ask questions when time permits. If you raise your hand, I'll make certain we recognize you and give you the time to be heard. So with that, I'll turn it over to Vicky and I'll mute myself to eliminate any background noise, and I'll stop sharing my screen. Vicky, is there any information that you're going to want to share on the screen that you'd like to be made co-host so you can share your screen?
Yes, please. I do have a presentation.
Very good. All right, you should now have the ability to share your screen.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. So we're ARC Center FMS. We're based out of San Diego, California, and we serve all of the state of California, and we're vendorized with the different regional centers within California. And so this is just a brief overview. Our director is Robert Bassick, and he presented earlier today. And we're just an FMS agency, like I mentioned before, within just California. We don't expand to the rest of this country. So today we're going to be referring or speaking about the bill payer model. And so we offer all three models, but that's the one we're going to speak about today. And this is our contact information if you need to reach out to us. If you have further questions and you don't feel comfortable disclosing them today, we would be more than happy to assist you. So as a bill payer model, you actually have the opportunity to connect with providers or vendors that you currently might be working with or possibly interested in working with. We have seen a lot of different vendors that we work with. So we're talking about maybe someone taking horseback riding as a form of becoming part of the community. So it's very, it gives you an opportunity to expand your, I guess, your horizon with regards to different services you can use that are maybe not available in the traditional model. So there's no employer-employee relationship. So we don't hire employees for you. We only work with vendors or providers. Also, we would take care of paying your invoices. Some providers like to invoice us on a weekly basis, some of them on a monthly basis. So as those invoices come in, we go ahead and process them out and confirm that they are part of your spending plan, and we issue payment. And we issue you a monthly client statement as well, providing you information as to what was paid out and how much was paid out. If there's any discrepancies, you definitely reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to do research or whatnot, or if there's adjustments that need to be made, we would be more than happy to help you out with that as well. The maximum monthly cost is between $50 to $100, and that cost is determined by the number of services you use. And by services, we mean vendors or providers. So if you're going to have a daycare program and just your FMS agency, that would count as 2. And always keep in mind that the FMS is part of the services that are listed in the spending plan and would be included in the cost. So that's definitely another way to use a bill payer if you want to use vendors. There's also the option of paying for items. I know that due to just, changes in what's going on with COVID and whatnot, a lot of people were able to purchase items like from Amazon. And so we were able to take care of those items. So that would be something that would be available under the bill payer feature as well. And then here's an example of a bill payer. So Jane is 26 years old and a participant in self-determination. Her and her team have selected the bill payer model. And she has her approved spending plan from the regional center. And she is going to go ahead and take part in horse therapy. And after a few sessions, her agency sends over the invoice to us. We go ahead and review it, make sure it's within the monthly expenditure listed within the spending plan, and go ahead and issue payment. We also make the parent and participant aware that we took care of this payment, so they are aware, if we're up to date, or if there's an issue, like I mentioned before, we can resolve it. And then, like we mentioned before, we do verify the amounts that are paid out to make sure that they do not over exceed what was listed in the spending plan. We do provide a monthly client statement report at the end of the month, confirming what invoices were paid out and which ones were not. And then also, they've also been sent over to your service coordinator, so they can go ahead and have an idea of how much has been spent along to the provider and not the provider, but the legal guardian and the parent or the participant. Okay, I don't know if you have any questions. Like I mentioned before, with the bill payer model, we can't hire an employee directly, but if you find someone that you really like within an agency, you're more than welcome to work with that agency and work directly with that employee. You'd have to set it up with the agency themselves, but that's definitely an option if you're interested in working with a specific person that's already set up with another employer. Also, the documentation that would be required. Normally what we ask parents while we're trying to transition from the traditional model to the self-determination is once they have their approved budget and they're working on their spending plan, that they connect with us. So we like to go ahead and reach out to vendors or providers and send them the necessary paperwork, which would be a W-9 and a participant disclosure or agreement, letting us know more or less we're going to meet so many times a week. This is the hourly cost or the cost per meeting. And so that way we base off, like we mentioned before, that's another way we check that the invoices are correct, that it matches what was listed in that participant agreement with the vendor. Also, like we mentioned, you can't hire employees, but we do pay invoices often. And like I mentioned before, your vendor determines that we need to get paid out on a weekly basis. So we can go ahead and issue payments on a weekly basis if that's something that they need, or is it monthly or bi-monthly, whatever they determine, we're flexible. Also, with the monthly client statement, you're able to determine how much money you've spent. We've had a few clients, as we get towards the middle part of your first spending plan year, we need to make adjustments because of certain situations, things change. So therefore money has to be moved over. We can assist you with making those adjustments if that's necessary. Also, we do not reimburse for purchases parents make on behalf of the participant, or if the guardian does so. We normally request that if any purchases need to be made, that you reach out to us either by phone or send us a link with the item that you wish to purchase so we can go ahead and take care of that on your behalf. Okay, Okay, and that's pretty much the extent of my presentation. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer any of them.
Thank you, Vicky. I don't see anything in the chat yet or any hands raised. So at this point, we can introduce Teracel, who can fill us in a little bit on the other two models of FMS.
Thank you so much. And I do have just a short presentation to share, if that's possible.
Absolutely. Let me make you a co-host.
Okay.
And you should now have the ability to share your screen with us.
I do. Thank you so much. Okay, just want to make sure everyone can see my screen okay. Perfectly.
I can
Awesome.
confirm we're seeing that.
Thank you. Again, my name is Teracel Jones. I'm the Director of State Services for GT Independence here in California. And you did have an opportunity to meet Ms. Jessica Mercado, who is one of the many field services rep we have on the ground serving families here in California. GT, our headquarters, we are headquarters in Sturgis, Michigan. We currently serve over 21,000 individuals in 11 states in the self-determination program throughout the country. So specifically, one of the first things that I want to talk to, and please let me know if my screen changed, is the co-employer model. And so just a little information about the co-employer model. A participant may choose this model if they want to share some of the employer roles and responsibility within FMS. While the FMS provider in this model is considered the employer of record, meaning that your employees work directly for them, the participant does maintain the ability to hire and terminate employees with the input from the FMS provider. The co-employer model does also allow the FMS provider to maintain all of the necessary insurance, workers' comp, liability to make sure that the employees are covered. Some of the things that we've seen with the co-employer model is that you do have the ability, I would say this, you do have the ability with the co-employer and the sole employer model to also have vendor service, some of the things that Vicky was talking about as well. But this specifically speaks to employees that you would like to hire and for them to be employees of the FMS. I will say in this arrangement, you are still considered the managing employer because you would still have to schedule your employees. You would need to make sure you sign off on their timesheets, as well as some of the things that Vicky was speaking about regarding the vendor services. So if you had a vendor, as she was speaking earlier, that you needed to make sure that invoices are submitted, one of the things that you want to make sure our GT does is that you make sure that the invoice, you review all invoices before GT pays for them. And that's just simply just to ensure that there's a checks and balance system in place, that the vendor is actually not submitting invoices directly to the FMS and it's being paid without your knowledge, but we want to make sure that you are aware of what those charges are. The co-employer model also gives you the flexibility regarding having conversation with your FMS about what services can they provide. So some of the things that you definitely want to discuss with your FMS in this arrangement is, can my employee still provide transportation? Does the insurance cover for that? Can my employee, how does your overtime rule work? Especially, this was something that came up on the discussion earlier, was if you have one employee under the co-employer model that works for several different other families that are in the co-employer model, how does the overtime rule affect? So some of the things to keep in mind under the co-employer model, the FMS is the employer of record. And so therefore, if you have that one employee working for multiple families in this model, they could be affected by the actual overtime rule. The next model I wanted to go over and discuss is the sole employer model. You may choose this model if you desire to have more control over your services and support, and you want to assume the role of an employer with the support of the FMS. And so with this particular model, and I know there's been a lot of discussion about it, but with the sole employer model, the FMS does assist with helping you to abide by all the applicable employment laws. It also will verify the provider qualification and obtaining background checks or assist with that. They will also process payroll, and the FMS may assist with obtaining any necessary insurance related to you, to the employment. And some FMSs may also assist with actually filing your quarterly and annual payroll taxes and providing necessary documents at the end of the year, like the W-2 or the 1099. You also may want to ask in this model, will the FMS assist you with actually getting your EIN number, your employer identification number, because some will also assist with that. So one of the things I do want to add with a co-employer model, the rates range anywhere between $125 to $165 per month, depending on the number of services that you have. And the sole employer model ranges between $110 and $150 a month. I also want to address the question that was asked earlier, what information is needed if you're going to choose an FMS or go with an FMS. I would say one of the things that you want to make sure is that you've already, again, gotten your certified budget. You've already, if you have an independent facilitator, or if you're working with your service coordinators, because service coordinators can serve as the independent facilitator to assist as well, to make sure that you've already started at least identifying some of the supports on your spending plan. Again, knowing which model you want to also address, if you do know those vendors, it's very helpful to get those services in place ahead of time so the FMS can initiate that contact, as well as employees. So I wanted to stop there. I know I just kind of ran through both of those models. I didn't want to detail it too much, simply because the training that Alta had was very helpful. So I do want to kind of see if there were any questions about the sole employer or the actual co-employer model. And I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Teresa. So good opportunity if anybody wants to unmute themselves, jump right in. Or if you'd like to be called upon, you can raise your hand. Or if you're shy and have a question, you can type it in the chat. We'll make sure it's read for folks to hear. I'd like to take this opportunity to share my screen again. And share some, So we do have a question. What's issued to employees, the 1099 or the W-2? And I think that depends on whether they are an independent contractor or an employee, if I'm not mistaken. I see Teresa nodding her head yes, so I do know some employment law. But maybe you could speak a little more to what constitutes a employee versus an independent contractor. What types of criteria differentiates the two roles of employees?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm kind of piggybacking off a little bit of what Vicky stated earlier, because she did explain it very well. So an employee would be someone that literally works for you, that will actually be responsible for submitting timesheets to the FMS. And some FMS have paper timesheets, some apps that they can literally clock in and clock out. And they actually complete the paperwork to be an employee, like an I-9, make sure their W-4s and everything is completed. They are considered employees because the FMS will then be taking taxes out of their paycheck and be issuing payroll to them twice a month. I know we issue payroll on the 10th and the 26th for all employees. We do the same thing for vendors. Now, for your vendors or your independent contractors, those are individuals that agree to contract with you for a specific service, and they will bill for that. So some of the examples, again, what Vicky stated was the horseback riding, swimming lessons, meaning that, the Y is not going to be an employee. They're going to be considered an actual vendor, or someone as simple as they're offering piano lessons or music lessons. You may not want to consider them as an employee, especially if they're only coming out once or twice a month and they're charging $45. You may want to look at them as long as they meet the criteria of what an independent contractor is in the state of California. Make them independent contractors, meaning no taxes will be taken out. We will pay them exactly for their service, and at the end of the year, they would be responsible for filing their own business tax.
Thank you for that clarification. I'm not sure if that prompts any follow-up questions, but in the interim, I'll go back to sharing my screen where I've got the Alta homepage, our intranet, and I intentionally wanted to start rather than have the information up and available so you can see where and how to navigate to it yourselves. And we do have on our intranet the static self-determination link. So you'll always find what we'll hope will be the most current up-to-date information related to self-determination on this link. Our section devoted to financial management services is right here. And one of the things it has is the link to the DDS website, where you can find all the vendored FMS agencies throughout the state. The ones that Alta currently has contracts with, you can click Alta and find those. And it's got their contact information and which of the 3 models of FMS they provide. Another tool to help you determine which of the 3 models is going to be the best fit for you, you can find also on our website here the FMS models comparison chart. DDS came up with this. We posted it on our website. It's a little 2-page resource broken down into a grid as to what the different responsibilities are within the different models. And I can put a link to this in the chat so that if folks are interested, they can navigate directly to that grid, download it to their computers. One of the other things I shared this morning or this afternoon that might be helpful and might speak a little bit to what Kadada's question was about the and Kadada asked what information parents or clients should have in hand when approaching an FMS. One of the other things you might consider is what questions you want to have in mind to help you sort through. So I'll share my screen one more time. And I'll go to a resource that's been shared a few times at some of these bi-weekly Q&A questions. And it's the 50-page handout that used to accompany the live orientation. And I can put a link to this as well, but questions for independent facilitators, possible questions for financial management service providers. So something if you don't even know where to begin in your selection process of which FMS model is right for you, which FMS provider, given their structure, might be the best fit for your needs. Here are a few questions you might consider asking of a FMS agency to guide you in your selection. So I'll put a link to this document in the chat as well.
question.
Sounds like we have a question.
Yeah, I guess this would be for Alta then. So some parents who have probably made up their mind on what type of model to use, and we're just getting all our ducks in a row and we're chomping at the bits to pick a FMS agency. But as Tercel just said, we need an approved budget before we can even meet with them and get going on that aspect. So it looks like the bottleneck here is Alta. Where would we be on that then? I mean, how quickly after self-determination is launched are these budgets going to get approved so we can get going with the FMS providers?
Those will happen rather quickly, we assume. And that's if there's planning team agreement on the budget. The turnaround time from expressing your preference to move forward with self-determination and getting the budget based on the prior 12 months expenditures won't take long. And it'd be premature to do it now because one, the program's not available, and because it's a rolling 12-month calculation of expenditures, we would need to incorporate May and June if the launch date is July. So a budget that were developed now wouldn't be inclusive of the months that were needed for the live launch date.
I have a question, but wouldn't the budget give us a roundabout figure of what's being paid? Because if we don't have any idea what's being paid to, for example, a respite agency, we won't know what we have to shop with, if that makes sense. So if we're thinking about hiring someone independently to provide respite services, we kind of need to know, okay, about, having an estimate of what's being paid. So, yeah.
A ballpark annually at every IPP, clients should be provided a list of the services that have been purchased for the prior year. And if your services haven't changed that much from one year to the next, that should give you a sense of what a future budget might look like.
Okay, I must say I have not received that. So what is that called?
It's called a statement of services.
Okay, statement of services. So I have recently received that. So, okay.
And it's inclusive of the rate that the regional center pays, the dollar amount associated with those services based on the number of hours or units that are purchased.
Okay. I have another question. I know, Tercel, you said that your company, GT Independence, is based in Michigan. And I know the other company, you said that you're based in San Diego. Do any of your companies maintain an office space in the Northern California area?
I'll go first. We actually have field teams. So Jessica, that's on the call, she's located in Sacramento. So all of our field staff, they work from home because pre-COVID, what our team does is they actually meet with the families in their home or wherever they would like to actually do the enrollments and do all of the paperwork. So we don't physically have a physical building, just simply because that's how GT does their enrollment. They really believe in the person-centered approach and meeting in the individual's home. So our team on the ground, we have someone in Fresno, we have someone elsewhere, but they literally will drive to meet you. So we do not have a physical building there in the Sacramento area or in LA. I work from home and I live in LA.
Okay.
And likewise, we don't have an office in the northern area. We're located in Southern California. Everything we do is online via phone. So yeah, unfortunately, we wouldn't have someone there physically, but we do make it a point to always connect with the participant. We understand that communication is crucial, especially as you're trying to launch all these, elements into getting everything to go smoothly. So everything's ready to go come start date. So we're definitely in constant communication with the participant, with the regional center, just to make sure everything's ready to go once you have your start date.
Okay, thank you both for that. I just want to, my only concern is, and I know it's not necessary to have, let's say, a brick and mortar building in the Northern California area. My concern, or I guess my question would be, how would you go about hiring someone independently? I guess they would do everything online, but they would be hired through the FMS online as well, with maybe a virtual interview, or not interview, but I don't know, some type of communication or contact with, do you know where I'm going with this? Tercel, I see you smiling. Like I know someone who will be great, you know, as a respite worker. And I'm like, hey, but contact this company. How would I do that? You know, put into words what I'm trying to say.
No, Miss Medina, that's a very good question. So one of the things that we say, and I know we are serving all 21 regional center. So when we have a family, the field rep, so I'll use Jessica as an example, you would contact the field rep because you're going to be in contact with her anyway prior to entering self-determination, even once you get started, so we can make sure everything is set up and run. You would literally say, Jessica, I have my employees that I want to onboard. One of the things that we understand, and all the FMS, and I know Vicki can say this, especially when it comes to the DOJ live scan, there are specific steps that your employees need to follow in order to get clearance. If they miss one of those steps, it can send you into a tailspin, and it can be months before that employee can get the clearance that they need. So that is why the field rep will literally reach out to your employee, give them specific instructions, make sure they have all of the documents that they need to go, and let them know where they can go to get the live scan done. If it's an internal background check, if it's something that they're not providing direct care and you opt to go that route, again, all of our paperwork is done via a DocuSign. We will send them the internal background check paperwork, because GT still does background checks, even if the person doesn't do a DOJ live scan, if they don't meet that criteria. We still do it. So everything is done through DocuSign. We have our internal team that run the national background check, a local state check, a credit check, and a driving record check. If anything comes back flagged into the internal, because DDS is different, if anything comes back in the internal background check, we're required to notify you, because you are the person that wants to hire this person. And if you decide to move forward, you have to sign an acknowledgement form. We present the results to you to know what was found. And then actually the enrollment, the paperwork, again, pre-COVID, it would be done face-to-face with your employees. What we're doing now is we've scheduled Zoom meetings to go over the paperwork, so the employees as well as the families know exactly what they're signing off on it. Our processing team makes sure everything is set up for you as the employer or us as the co-employer, because we want to make sure, as far as the IRS is concerned and the state of California is concerned, everything is in place and done correctly.
Okay, thank you.
And also, could you clarify, Tercel and Vicki? I know you presented on one model each, but does your company provide all three models?
Thank you, Mariko. Yes, we do. We offer all three models: the bill payer, the sole employer, and the co-employer.
And the same for GT. We offer all three models.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Not seeing anything new in chat. Not seeing any hands raised. So a question, if you don't have a statement of services and have not used respite hours, there's no budget. Does this mean you don't qualify for SDP? So there would be other services other than respite that potentially the regional center could be purchasing, although that's probably the most common service for our school-age population. If there haven't been any purchases over the last 12 months and there are no unmet needs and there are no changes in circumstances that would result in an adjustment in a budget, then the budget would be $0. And with a $0 budget, you're not even going to be able to afford the cost of the FMS agency. So it almost defeats the purpose. It wouldn't be that you'd be ineligible for self-determination, but there would be, in my mind, no good reason to proceed with transitioning from the traditional service delivery if your needs are being met through accessing natural supports and generic resources, which would presumably be the case if you don't have a budget because there have been no prior authorizations. Hope that makes sense. And the question that we always get and always hope we'll have an answer for, but are holding our breath, what is the start date? When does self-determination become available to everyone outside of those selected in the lottery for the initial rollout? We suspect it's going to be sometime in late June at the earliest, early July at the latest, but that's fingers crossed, and we're waiting on confirmation from the department, and we ask them weekly, if not daily, if we can get an update on that so we can begin planning for the expansion. I'm just reading some of the chats here. And I appreciate folks putting their contact information if they're a potential source of information and resource for family members. So I'll encourage participants, family members, to take a peek in the chat and see if there's information you want to copy from there. The last thing I'll do, and this might potentially generate some more questions, is put a plug in for participation in our local advisory, the Self-Determination Advisory Committee. And let me share my screen and pull up the schedule of where those meetings are and how you might join us in that forum. So again, from our homepage on the website, diving into the self-determination portion at the bottom, we have our Self-Determination Advisory Committee meeting. And here's a list of our upcoming dates. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock, being the next scheduled opportunity to get together, and meeting every other month. A good forum for interested participants to network and gather more information. And I can grab the link to this and put that in the chat as well. There was a question early on before we started the Q&A as to how many current participants we have actively receiving self-determination, actually receiving their regional center services through the self-determination program model of delivery. And I don't know if we're in double digits yet. Have we passed the, I see a head nodding yes, so that means at least 10 regional center clients, and we'll be respectful of their confidentiality, but some of those participants are very comfortable being vocal in those forums of those advisory committees, sharing what their experience has been, what they've learned as the pioneers, the trailblazers, and from a parent perspective or a client perspective, sometimes real helpful to pass along. We do have some staff here that might be able to share some perspective on what working with SDP participants, the types of questions that came up and the preparation that was helpful to be successful in that. So if any of our staff would like to take the opportunity to unmute and share. Meanwhile, Margot asks if those self-determination advisory committee meetings are recorded and posted as well. And I don't believe so. I think those are intended to be a little less formal, less specific on information exchange, more of sort of an informal networking opportunity.
Herman, can I add something?
Please.
Yeah, so this is Sonia Bingaman with the State Council. Two comments. One about the SDAC, the Self-Determination Advisory Committee. That's a great way to learn about the actual rollout, what's happening right now, what families or individuals are in the program, what the barriers are, what the challenges are, what things we're looking at improving so that things can go more smoothly in the coming months. So it's really a process meeting about how things are going in terms of the rollout. It's not necessarily a training. So if you come, it may seem a little abstract if you're not really familiar with the terms and what's going on in terms of the different steps of self-determination. The committee is made up of half the members on the committee are appointed by the regional center, half are appointed by myself and the State Council. And the Disability Rights, the Office of Clients' Rights Advocate is also a member of that committee. You're always welcome to those committees. They're a public meeting, but it's not a training, just to kind of be clear about that. And generally, they are hosted on Zoom, but we haven't been recording them. Sometimes, that said, we do sometimes have a training as part of it, and there's sometimes really good information shared. So attend if you can. And then I also wanted to back up a couple minutes to comment about budgets, and if maybe attending or listening to the recording of the previous Q&A session where we talked more about budget might be helpful, because it's not, if you don't have much of a budget now, that doesn't mean that self-determination is not an option for you. You might not have services or a budget now because maybe there was no service in your region, in your county, because you live in a rural county, say, or maybe there was nobody who spoke your language, so you chose not to use a service, respite or another service. Or there are other reasons, maybe some challenging behaviors made it hard for your family member to attend a local program. There wasn't maybe an appropriate service. So just because you don't have that budget doesn't mean that self-determination isn't a good option. And those are part of reassessing your services under, or your budget, potential budget under, I just lost the two phrases, but change in circumstance and unmet
Sonia,
need.
it's unmet need.
Got it. Change in
Yes.
circumstance and unmet need. It just, we should all have that part of our brain. Anyway, yeah. So I think not to be afraid of going into self-determination thinking, oh, all I've been doing is using a little bit of respite, because maybe there's other services that could fall under or be added into your budget using some approximations that the regional center will be using for what that service might cost, and then that could be added to your budget. So so just not to be discouraged if your budget seems like it's really small, or maybe you have no budget because your family member is 14 and you just haven't been using some services. So just wanted to say that, and maybe going back and watching the session on budgeting and spending plans might be helpful too.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. And last thing I'll plan to share will just be the flyer that brought you all here today for today's session, and just an advertisement for our upcoming session 2 weeks from today, May 25th. We'll offer both a noon and a 5 o'clock session, and the topic we'll be focusing on will be the role of the independent facilitator, something new with the self-determination model. Doesn't exist within the traditional service delivery. So we'll spend some time talking about that. And if you're interested, please feel free to join us and bring your questions. And not seeing any new information in chat or any hands raised. Going once, going twice. I can leave I can be the last one to leave the meeting in case there are people that are still combing through the chat and cutting and pasting or clicking links to retrieve information. So we can leave the meeting live, open and running. But if nobody has anything further to add or ask, we can adjourn. So I'll thank once again our panelists for their time. Teracel and Vicky, appreciate it. Regional Center staff, thank you as always.